All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about a concept called the friction tax, based on some great work by board advisor Liz Henderson. And it really gets to the core of why so many of these big, expensive AI initiatives just kind of fizzle out. It's the question that keeps a lot of leaders up at night. You invest in the tech, you make the big announcement about transformation, but adoption is just painfully slow. Your team isn't really using it. So why? Well, the answer almost never has to do with the technology itself. And this is the real heart of the problem. While leadership is up there talking about efficiency and optimization, what the team hears is way simpler and, frankly, a lot more alarming. Your job is at risk. This quote just nails that fundamental disconnect. The resistance you're feeling isn't about software features, it's about fear. And that leads us right to this core idea, the friction tax. It's that invisible cost you're paying for the gap between what leadership intends and what the team fears. And that tax, it compounds every single day your people keep this powerful new tool at a distance. So here's maybe the first huge takeaway for you. Your AI problem, it isn't really a technology problem. It's not even a training problem. It is a narrative problem. Or to put it another way, it's often a trust deficit that you can only fix by telling a much clearer, much better story. So if it's a narrative problem, you know what every good narrative needs, right? It needs a villain. To change the story, you've got to first identify the real enemy. And here's a little spoiler alert. It's not the AI. The interesting thing is, this enemy is already in the building. The source material calls it the unseen operating model. Just think about it for a second. The clunky spreadsheets, the endless copying and pasting, all the workarounds people have to invent for broken processes. This is the invisible friction your team already hates, and they've been dealing with it for years. And this is the brilliant pivot. When you position AI as the tool to finally dismantle that frustrating old system, everything changes. AI stops being a threat to your people and becomes an ally against a shared enemy, the broken process everyone already despises. So, how do you actually make that pivot? How do you do it? Well, the source gives us a really clear, actionable game plan. It's got 4 specific moves to help you rewrite that story and get rid of the friction tax for good. So we're going to walk through these 4 moves. A jargon detox, building something called a data cafe, reframing the value for your team, and finally just naming that friction tax out loud. Let's break them down. First up, the jargon detox. You've got to stop talking about large language models or generative AI. It's intimidating, it's abstract. Instead, frame it like it's simple infrastructure. Think of it like this. AI is just a tool for taking information that's sitting there doing nothing and putting it to work for you. That's it. Simple as that. Okay, so once you simplify the language, you have to create a space for curiosity. That's move number 2. Build a data cafe. And forget those mandatory top-down training sessions. Comfort comes from doing. You need to create a space, it could be a physical room or just a virtual channel, where people can experiment on real tasks without any pressure. The goal isn't to teach AI, it's to make it familiar enough that curiosity finally wins out over fear. Third, you have to reframe the value, and it has to be personal. It can't be some generic promise about company efficiency. I mean, look at these examples. For a junior analyst, AI isn't a replacement, it's a career amplifier. It makes you as productive as someone 3 levels up. For a manager, it buys back time, freeing them from the weeds so they can actually lead. You got to make it concrete and specific for each and every role. And the 4th move is to just name the friction tax out loud. Be direct. Point to the exact manual processes that are draining your team's time and energy. Call out the report that eats up every Tuesday morning. When you identify those specific pain points, you make the old way of working the enemy, and AI becomes the hero. So let's say you've changed the narrative and you've gotten people on board. The work isn't over. In fact, it leads to a much deeper, more strategic question. What kind of AI-powered workforce are you actually trying to build? A lot of leaders are aiming for a seamless integration, one where people are comfortable just using AI as another tool. But the source material argues that's not enough. A capable workforce is competitive. They don't just use the tool, they actively shape how it's applied. And that difference between using and shaping, well, that's everything. And that leads to this really crucial point. Just aiming for comfort is aiming way too low. Long-term, sustainable success in this new era, it's going to be defined by capability, by having a team that can direct and innovate with AI, not just consume it. So, this all brings us to the final and, honestly, the most important part of this whole puzzle. It all boils down to one simple human truth. The leaders who are absolutely winning with AI right now, they aren't necessarily the ones with the most advanced models or the biggest budgets. Nope. They are the ones who are telling the clearest internal stories. They are master storytellers.
Because they understand something fundamental. They know their teams aren't really asking about algorithms or data pipelines. They're asking a much more personal, much more basic question.
This is it. This is the only question that truly matters. What does this mean for me? Every single person on your team is asking this, whether they say it out loud or not. It's about their role, their value, and their future. And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. Forget the implementation roadmaps and the technical specs for just a moment. If you can answer that one simple human question with clarity and with honesty, the friction just disappears. And the technology, it will absolutely take care of itself.